Right. Welcome, everyone. I'll give it a minute while folks come in from the waiting room. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us today and welcome. I'm Stephanie Rao, Executive Director for the National Council on Public History. NCPH is a membership association dedicated to helping public historians put history to work in the world. Thank you for joining us today for fully funded historical markers, preserving local stories and strengthening community. It has been a pleasure to partner with the Pomeroy Foundation on this webinar. Before we get underway, I wanted to share a few housekeeping notes as we get started. This event does have Zoom auto captions available, and to access those, hit Show Captions at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. Please feel free to use the chat area throughout the webinar to share where you're joining us from, if you're snowed in at the moment, and to share resources with one another. If you have questions for our presenters at any time during the presentation today, you can enter those in the Q&A box that you can access at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We are recording this webinar and we will share the recording for the webinar as well as all of the resource links that we'll be sharing in the chat throughout today's presentation with you by email afterwards. So don't worry about writing all of that down during the presentation. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Steve Bodner of the Pomeroy Foundation for some words of welcome and to get us started today. Steve?
Thank you, Stephanie. Hello, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are. My name is Steve Bodner, and I head up marketing and communications for the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. Thank you for joining us. It's great to be with you. Before we dive in, I just want to acknowledge the National Council on Public History, Stephanie, Megan, and commend all of you as members for the great work you're doing in public history every day. You're stewards, and we're grateful for the opportunity to spend this time with you and talk about how our historical marker grant programs can help support and enhance your work. All of us at the Pomeroy Foundation and our founder and trustee, Bill Pomeroy, are excited about the opportunities to help you commemorate, preserve, and share history in a visible, lasting way with Pomeroy historical markers. So, as we go through today's presentation, I invite you to think about how Pomeroy markers can bring greater attention to the history in the places and spaces you work and live. And now I am delighted to introduce my colleagues from the Pomeroy Marker team who will be joining us today: Emma McDowell, Anastasia Sobczak, and John Hart.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emma, and I'm a research historian and engagement associate at the Pomeroy Foundation. I assist applicants throughout the application process and perform outreach to promote our marker programs, and I'm so glad to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anastasia Sobczak. I'm also a research historian and engagement associate here at the Pomeroy Foundation. And I also am the lead for the Pomeroy Education Program and our Hungry for History program. I'm delighted to be here as well.
And I'm John Hart. I'm actually the archivist and collections manager for the sister organization, the American Pomeroys, and serve as the primary grant reviewer for the Patriot Burials program.
Great. Thank you, Marker team. Here's the presentation focus for today. We'll start with an introduction to Bill Pomeroy and the mission of the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. Then we'll take a closer look at why historical markers are so central to the work that we do and the impact that they have on communities across the country. After that, we'll walk through our signature marker grant programs and our partnership programs and how they're relevant to the work you're doing in public history. And then finally, we'll share information about our other marker related initiatives and talk about how you can stay connected with us and use our website to learn about the programs and apply. So, for those of you who are new to us, the William G. Pomeroy Foundation is a private philanthropic organization based in Syracuse, New York. We're founded by entrepreneur and philanthropist Bill Pomeroy, who brings together his two greatest passions, improving outcomes for blood cancer patients and helping communities celebrate their history with historical markers. Bill established the foundation while battling acute myeloid leukemia, and his vision during that ordeal was to improve the probability of survival for others through donor matches and life-saving treatments. So people often ask, well, why historical markers? And for Bill, that's a love of history that goes back to his childhood. He remembers uh, these trips traveling with his father, who was a salesman, and stopping to read roadside markers together. And those fond memories really stayed with him throughout the years and made a lasting impression. So later, when Bill found out that in New York State, where we're based, that the official state marker program stopped its funding in the late 1930s, that communities were paying for markers in all the decades since on their own. And so Bill saw an opportunity to fill that gap. And that's when he launched our New York State Historical Marker Grant Program, which is the first of many marker grant programs that we now offer today. So before we get into our overview of programs, I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of historical markers. Every Pomeroy marker tells a story, honors a legacy, and strengthens the fabric of a community. They spark curiosity, educate the public, inspire community pride, and boost tourism. Markers connect people to their local history, and they highlight untold stories and bring forward voices that might be otherwise overlooked. And of course, they engage future generations. So when a marker is installed, communities also host dedication ceremonies, and these are events that bring people and neighbors together, local officials, partner organizations, volunteers, the media outlets, and for National Council on Public History members, these are important events or moments that you could think about how it would help to build visibility and strengthen your community connections. I also want to point out that accuracy for Pomeroy markers is paramount. Every Pomeroy marker grant application is vetted by the professional historians on staff, and it's our gold standard. And we do very careful verification of those primary sources to support the marker inscriptions. And I also want to point out that all Pomeroy markers are fully funded. That means we cover the entire cost of the marker, the pole, and the shipping to the grant recipient. And that really removes the barrier for communities and organizations to getting historical markers. Now we're going to get into the programs. So we've got two main categories for our marker programs, our signature programs and our partnership programs. And together that allows us to help commemorate a wide range of stories from transportation to folklore, foodways, national events, and many of these really align well with villages, towns, and cities nationwide in getting historical markers. So next, I'm going to be turning it over to my colleague, Emma, to talk about our signature programs. And keep in mind that each of these programs do have their own webpage on our website, wgpfoundation.org, where you could find criteria, guidelines, application instructions. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Emma.
All right, thanks, Steve. So our flagship program is the New York State Historic Marker Program, and this is the one that started it all. It commemorates people, places, events, and things from 1683 to 1926 and has served as the model for our National Hometown Heritage Program. Since 2006, we've awarded more than 1,200 New York State historic markers across all 62 counties in New York State, many of them at historic homes and buildings, cemeteries, schoolhouse, and other sites that are significant to the community and beyond. The Historic Transportation Program commemorates railroads, bridges, tunnels, canals, and aviation. It focuses on the ways in which goods and people were transported prior to 1945, before the automobile and interstate highways reshaped travel. These markers show visitors how movement across the nation has evolved over time. Our National Register program provides bronze plaques and markers for properties and districts listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Because designation alone doesn't provide funding, this program helps fill that gap, particularly for publicly accessible sites. Applications are accepted year-round and are straightforward, requiring only the designation and land permission letters. This can be an excellent option for historic structures, sites, and districts. Legends and Lore celebrates folklore and cultural heritage. From folktales to oral traditions, this program captures stories that may not appear in textbooks but are deeply meaningful to communities. Stories often tied to real-life events, legendary figures, and customs passed down through the generations. These markers invite imagination and storytelling, enriching visitor experience in outdoor spaces. Our goal is to offer Legends and Lore in all 50 states and Washington, D.C. Oh, thank you. Right now, it's available in 15 states. In each state, we partnered with a folklore-related nonprofit that promotes the program and reviews applications. We don't have a folklorist on staff, so these partnerships are essential. If you know of a qualified folklore organization in a state not yet participating, please contact us. We're always looking to expand. And now I'll hand it over to Anna.
Thanks, Emma. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Hungry for History. So Hungry for History celebrates traditional regional food dishes created prior to 50 years ago. So you might want to think about Syracuse salt potatoes, Sonker in North Carolina, or Burgoo Festival in Illinois. These food dishes and festivals have historical stories that often intersect with parks, markets, community gathering places, and they can be powerful expressions of local identity. So we also have Hometown Heritage, which we mentioned before. This is our national program. It commemorates historically significant people, places, events that are all older than 100 years. It's especially valuable in states without a marker program or for topics that don't fit elsewhere. Each marker features the outline of the state at the top, which reinforces local identity. Since we have our New York State Historic Program, we don't offer Hometown Heritage in New York State, but you can share this with your friends outside New York State. So next, we're going to talk just a little bit about our partner programs. In addition to our signature programs, we partner with nonprofit organizations and governments to commemorate historic people, places, and events that align with their historic preservation and educational missions. These partnerships allow us to fund markers across broader networks, such as the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission or the National Collaborative for Women's History Sites, who we have partnered with before. One example is the Lafayette Trail. The Lafayette Trail commemorates General Lafayette's farewell tour of 1824 to 1825 across 24 states, as well as his service during the Revolutionary War. These markers celebrate Lafayette as a Revolutionary War hero and capture the excitement that swept through communities during his visit, often along major travel routes of the era. And now I'll pass it to John.
Thanks, Anna. The Patriot Burials program commemorates the final resting places of Revolutionary War patriots. Through our partnership with the Sons of the American Revolution, more than 200 markers have been funded thus far. Many are located in rural cemeteries and park-like settings, places of reflection that benefit from clear, respectful interpretation. For local communities, this program presents them the opportunity to connect with their local SAR chapter and ultimately the state organization to apply for the program. Our partnerships with Alabama, Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, New Hampshire, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia are very active, and applications arrive both from the SAR themselves as well as SAR co-application packets from local historical societies. In states where there may not be partnerships yet, we welcome those communities to reach out to us or their statewide SAR chapter to work together to bring more states into the program.
All right, and another one of our partner programs is Trails Across America. This is a new national partnership with the Rails to Trails Conservancy, and this is the second marker series we're doing with Rails to Trails, the first being the Great American Rail Trail. This program provides fully funded markers along multi-use trails, including greenways, canal paths, and former rail lines converted into recreational trails. Markers must be placed along trails protected from vehicular traffic, accessible to people of all abilities, and designed for non-motorized use. Subjects are eligible through 1956, marking the passage of the Interstate Highways Act and a turning point in transportation history. With more than 42,000 miles of trail corridors nationwide, the goal is to fund up to 20 new markers each year, connecting communities through the powerful combination of history and place. When applying for a Pomeroy Marker grant, there are 3 key steps. First, you'll want to review the program guidelines and criteria. Second, you have to confirm eligibility. Our grants are open to 501c3 organizations, nonprofit academic institutions, tribal nations, and government entities. Then third, you'll begin by gathering primary sources and a land permission letter early. These are essential to a successful application. Please visit our website for complete guidelines and grant round dates and deadlines. Now back to Steve.
Thank you, Emma. So I just want to share a really great resource with you that's on the Pomeroy Foundation's website. It is our digital marker map. So applicants often find inspiration through the marker map, and every single Pomeroy marker that we have funded, which is over 3,000 now across the country, has its very own webpage on the marker map. And I have an example slide here of what one of those web pages looks like. It includes location details, historical text, the inscription, photos. It can have video. And so it's a really great research tool and a way for the grant recipients and communities to be able to engage with the markers virtually and get some more information about that particular site.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about our Pomeroy Education Program next. Another opportunity that we offer is our Pomeroy Education Program, which turns historical research into hands-on public history. Students are able to conduct primary source research, prepare applications, and they can see their work realized as a permanent marker in their community. Originally for high schools, the program is now we're working on expanding it into higher education and offering flexible resources that are aligned with semester timelines. The student applications are accepted on a rolling basis. So, in order to support this, we have a free high school curriculum that was developed by a teacher for teachers. We contracted with a history teacher who developed this curriculum using the National Council for the Social Studies C3 framework and the New York State Seal of Civic Readiness Initiative. Although this can be used to fulfill the initiative in New York, the lessons are not specific to New York and they can be used in any state. It includes 15 lesson plans that are designed to span 3 weeks. The lessons cover things like public history basics, doing primary source research, evaluating sources and some analysis skills, how to compose the marker inscription, lessons on historical context and narrative, and how to plan a dedication ceremony. And of course, last but not least, how to apply for the Pomeroy Foundation grant. These projects also are able to provide an opportunity to involve the community in the classroom with visits from local historians, the sons or daughters of the revolution, or special collections and museums experts. And then we also are now working on offering resources for instructors who teach at the college level who would like to integrate marker applications into their curriculum. To make this process easier, we are providing a Start Here guide, a starter syllabus and schedule, 6 starter PowerPoints, and 6 handouts. These are still under development and are currently being pilot tested in a public history introduction course. These materials are designed to encourage a higher level of critical analysis about historical narrative building, as well as monument and marker scholarly discourse. We have recently had a handful of applications come from undergraduate, master's, and PhD students, which you may remember. Our previous webinar with the National Council for Public History featured Dr. Jessica Elfenbein from the University of South Carolina, who we recently awarded 6 markers to her students. Uh, Pardon me. These projects are excellent for networking with other public historians and government officials, and students have even presented their work at conferences. And now I'll pass it back to Steve.
Thanks, Anna. Just a couple of slides left, and then we'll move into Q&A. So I wanted to point out that National Historic Marker Weekend is coming up on Friday, April 24th, and through Sunday, April 26th. So save the dates. This is our national all-volunteer event where folks across the country get together and go out and clean historical markers to help beautify their communities while learning about local history. It's a great time. It's a lot of fun. There's more than 200,000 historical markers nationwide, so there's plenty to choose from. There's plenty that need care. So it's a great time. Get a team together, get your neighbors together, family, friends. The registration is open on our website now, wgpfoundation.org. So sign up, volunteer, and we'll see you out there. So that's it. That's our presentation for today. Thank you so much for your time. We invite you to learn more, of course, on our website. But now we're happy to answer any questions that you might have from today's presentation, things that you have thought of as we've covered these slides. And we're just really happy to support you and the communities that you live and work with historical markers.
Thank you so much to Steve, Emma, Anastasia, and John for sharing your work with all of us today. We already have our first question in the Q&A. Jacob Etreim asks, are there any specifications of how the historic marker should look or be created?
That is a really excellent question. So you might have heard me say throughout the presentation, Pomeroy markers, quite a bit, which is, analogous to historical markers. All of our markers do have a very certain look and feel to them. A great example on this slide is the approximate size of what one of these markers looks like. There is a title line, 5 lines of text, a credit line, or sometimes multiple credit lines at the bottom, a date, a series number, a place at the top for a logo. And for each of those signature programs that Emma and Anna talked about and the partnership programs that the marker team talked about, they all have a certain look and feel and its own really branding around that particular program. And that helps to create continuity for those particular programs so that when you go and see a marker from Legends and Lore, you know it's a Legends and Lore marker, or from the National Votes for Women Trail, or from Hometown Heritage. So there are some minor customizations that sometimes we do in terms of maybe a credit line or an added badge, but generally each program has its own unique design, and that's something that really helps to peg it to that theme. I'll also mention, which I think is a really great added bit of context, that all of these markers are manufactured in the same way that they were manufactured 100 years ago. They're forged out of cast aluminum. These are hand lettered. So there are typesetters that actually go and put these letters on the markers. Much of the paint is hand painted. These are handcrafted works of art. They're beautiful. They're amazing. And that's another little detail of the quality of why we're so passionate about what we do and why getting it right through the primary sources is so important.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Our next question from Idris Danjumba Kolo says, what is the rationale behind historical markers and what benefit does it have for our communities?
That's a really great question, and that really ties into the benefits. I think I'll use an example from the Pomeroy Education Program. So, as Anastasia said, the education program provides a 3-week curriculum to students where they can conduct primary source research to learn about their local community and then have the opportunity to work on a grant where they can actually get a wonderful handcrafted historical marker that's in the physical world, that's part of the tangible, experiential aspect of engaging with their local history. So, when we think about local history and some of these types of overlooked stories, important figures, when you think about some of the larger programs out there, larger state-based programs, you often think of state significance or national significance or even international significance. And by focusing on local history, which is what we really do with all of these programs, it's really giving people the opportunity to commemorate figures that are and events and things that are important to their local community at the hyper local level. And I think about examples of these dedication ceremonies in a hamlet that, maybe has 100 people or maybe even less. And they do the dedication ceremony, and there's people who are crying. There are descendants that have come back to these communities and saying, "Oh, I see that you are really recognizing this as something that's important to us in our community identity." It's so powerful. It's incredible. Dedication ceremonies really are a highlight of why that's so important. And so, when you think about that in its entirety, that's really what we're trying to do and accomplish with the historical marker part of our mission.
Thank you. Our next question, and thank you everyone for these amazing questions everyone's putting in the chat and the Q&A box. Our next one is, do you partner with the National Park Service National Underground Railroad Heritage Network?
That is not a collaboration that we currently have, but it would be great to get some more information about what they're working on, what they're doing related to placemaking and physical historical markers. If you have information, one of the things that we really, really want to emphasize is having conversations with potential partners, collaborators. This is an ongoing thing for us to think about new partnerships. We've got a bunch on the horizon in 2026. We're finalizing some now. So if someone is interested or has a contact, please reach out to us. We've got the contact information on our slide. Let's talk and see if there's a good alignment for historical markers.
Thank you. Our next question is from Jim Bourne. Can you talk about your funding to the Site Center, in particular the audio signage? In general, how do you support accessibility?
That's a great question. So the particular marker that you're talking about, I believe, is through our partnership with the Ohio History Connection. And Ohio History Connection administers the official state historical marker program for the state of Ohio. And we have provided funding for their marker program. One of the things that we don't do a lot of is fund official state marker programs. We like to do new partnerships, historical marker trails that don't exist yet, so that we can really look to new history. And in that particular case, and the reason why I'm giving that context is because that was actually all done on their end. So I don't have a lot of information about how that particular piece came about for that particular site. But it sounds like, and I'm sure that Ohio History Connection worked with the grant applicant in providing those accessibility tools. One of the things that we always like to think about, and we do think about with every single one of our markers, is access and visibility. And so we require a land permission letter for every single grant applicant that we approve, so we know precisely what the GPS coordinates are, what type of location it is, where people can engage with it, and just really think through all of those types of things. So that's something that we think about for all of our markers. I can't speak in more detail about that specific one, but I'm happy to connect with you and offline and get you more information about that one.
All right. Our next question is from Dolores Rogers, who asks, do you have any partners in or near Houston, Texas?
We don't necessarily have um, any large scale statewide partnerships. Um, Or well, I'll actually back that up. Uh, for historical markers, we have funded some specifically in the state of Texas through various programs that we have. We are partners with the Texas Folklore Society for our Legends and Lore marker program. Now, those are technically, in a way, historical markers. We like to call them roadside markers, but that really focuses more on the folkloric aspects of community culture and identity. I guess the short answer is yes and no. But if there is an organization or a group or a grant recipient or someone specific that wants to have a conversation about partnerships or more markers through, for example, this Hometown Heritage program that we have, which is available all throughout Texas, including in Houston and the Houston area, happy to have those conversations, and that would be terrific.
Great. Our next question comes from NCPH's own Megan Hillman, who asks, do y'all ever frequent the state and local fair circuit? She says, when I interned with the Indiana Historical Bureau in grad school, we would bring a marker to the state fair for attendees to help us repaint to raise awareness about the marker program and get folks invested in their upkeep.
Well, that sounds really, really awesome. Uh, One of the things that we do in a more limited capacity is go to regional or national conferences. We'll do presentations, sometimes we'll exhibit. It really kind of depends on what's going on that year, the theme. There's a variety of factors that we think through on a case-by-case basis, but engaging with people in person with historical markers, and we even have some life-size historical markers that we've brought that are cutouts. We've got a banner stand, that kind of thing. Yeah, it really is a great way to engage with people in person. And so when those opportunities come up to engage with people in person, we're all about that. I'm very interested in doing that and having conversations about what opportunities might be there for us to do that.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Nicole Elzenga from the Renville County Historical Society, who asks, would these markers allow QR codes or more of the stationary sign than just wordage?
So QR codes have been really a topic of conversation for us at the Pomeroy Foundation, especially in recent years. It's a great way, and tools like it are a great way to bridge the digital and physical worlds and get more information and link to websites. We have had tested some QR codes on certain markers in more of a pilot capacity. Some of our partners have added additional signage after the fact that have QR codes on them. So we do have some examples out there. And it's a conversation we continue to have, and we think that there's a huge opportunity for innovation of connecting technology to historical markers to help enhance engagement, accessibility, and really just kind of expand the historical conversations around that particular site. It's a really great idea. And if there is anything specific with that, please reach out to us, and that's a conversation we would definitely have. But for all of our signature programs as it is right now, there isn't an actual QR code added to them, but it's something that we would certainly have a conversation about.
Great. Our next question comes from Gift Romanus, who's writing in from Nigeria and would love to ask if it's possible for individuals outside of the US to participate in these grant programs or how flexible the programs are for international participants.
That's an excellent question. The Pomeroy Foundation is a grant-making foundation that provides funding throughout the United States. Uh, That said, there have been conversations with organizations that are nonprofits that qualify, 501(c)(3)s, tribal nations, government entities, nonprofit academic institutions. That's the broad group of organizations and entities that can receive our grants. There have been conversations with some that have international connections or missions where perhaps there's an opportunity to provide grant funding to them for the historical marker, and they make arrangements for the site at an international location. That's something that we would have to have a much more robust conversation about the logistics, about how that actually works. I'm talking about this very generally, just to kind of help answer this question that there could be a conversation there, and that's maybe how something like that would work. But broadly, all of these grants and all these programs have their own geographic areas, either nationally or state-based for us, for the most part.
Thank you. Malanka Ronaldo asks how you would get a land permission letter. And I think adding on to that, if there's any advice or examples that you could share that might be helpful for someone, concerned about that part of the application process.
So when it comes to land permission letters, one of the things, and I'm sure all of my colleagues on the marker team on the presentation today would agree that starting that conversation early and as early as possible is probably one of the most important pieces of the whole grant application process. The reason why I say that is because you want to know that that location is going to be available to you for the historical marker. So you don't want to do all of this work and then hit a road bump where you're not able to actually get the marker installed. So having a conversation with a property owner, whether that's the municipality, an organization, even a private property owner, that's all something that can be worked out in terms of conversations early on. And we require a signed permission letter from that property owner as part of the application process. We do have some language for the land permission letter and require, like, let's say it's with an official organization, that it's on their letterhead to make it official, help make it official. And so there are some parameters and guidelines that we can provide in that. But I think one of the most important things is having the conversation with whoever the potential site landowner is as early as possible.
That's great advice. Our next question is from Brendan Lee, who asks, have you created any partnerships with colleges and universities?
We do. We work with colleges and universities quite often. And as I answer this, maybe Anastasia wants to jump on and talk a little bit about South Carolina. But yeah, we work with colleges and universities all the time. The education program is expanding into colleges and universities. So I'll turn it over to Anastasia and let her share some information about that.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so as Steve mentioned, the University of South Carolina just did 6 applications with us last year. And that was with Dr. Jessica Elfenbein. She had a mixed group of master's and PhD students who worked on applications and submitted them. We've also received applications from some students one student at Clarkson University. That was pretty recent as well. And then right now, I'm working with a professor out in Ohio at Shawnee State University, who is he's testing out our college level resources, higher education resources for us, just to give him a test run before we share them widely. And so I'm expecting 1 or 2 applications from him this spring. So yeah, there's a handful out there.
Thank you so much. And I put in the chat earlier, and we'll make sure to include this in the follow-up resources. Last fall, NCPH and the Pomeroy Foundation partnered on a similar webinar focused on the education programs for college and university faculty. And we were joined in that presentation by Jessica Elfenbein and one of her students. And it was a great conversation to learn more about the potential of that program. So that recording is available for you to watch. Our next question is from Mary Tinder, who asks if you're currently working with any projects in Illinois.
So a great example is that the on this slide, the Hometown Heritage Program, our national local historical marker program, is available in Illinois. We have funded markers through the National Collaborative of Women's History Sites on the National Votes for Women Trail in Illinois. We've got other markers that we have funded through our other marker programs in Illinois. And we have had a collaboration with the Illinois State Historical Society. So we've done plenty of work in Illinois and look forward to more collaborations, partnerships, and markers for those who are interested.
Wonderful. I want to add that Brendan Lee put in the chat. Thank you for that answer and that they'll be submitting something hopefully soon for Utah State University. So that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Dolores Rogers asks, how many markers do you grant each year?
So right now, if we look back at maybe the past 3 years, over 350 historical markers nationwide each year. And I can say that now that we've seen the 2025 numbers come in, we've actually had a record year for grant making for historical markers, over 400 historical markers nationwide.
Congratulations. That's amazing. I was wondering if you could share a little bit about what deadlines are coming up for grant funding that folks should make sure they have on their calendars.
So we do two major grant cycles each year. For most of the signature programs that we showcase today, there is a spring grant round that begins around, let's say, early March through April, early May. And there are a variety of deadlines within that time period. That includes what we call the LOA or the LOI, excuse me. That's a letter of intent to apply, and that's where folks include the list of primary sources that they're going to be using, a proposed marker inscription, and then once that gets approved and reviewed by our team, then they can get the green light to do a formal application and spend that deeper time on research and all of that. And so that's kind of just a high level look at how that works. That also applies for the fall. So in, let's say, late August through September, early October, these grant rounds open up again a second time. There are a couple of outliers. National Register, we accept applications on a rolling basis year round. The education program, if you're working with students, we want to be very flexible with educators. So there's a way for the educators to work with their students any time of the year in a stage that has lots of information about that. So we can engage and provide information to you that way. But generally, those are kind of the two big grant cycles each year. And then partner programs work a little bit differently. It's a little bit more custom depending on their needs as a partner organization and who's applying through them and at the local level.
Perfect. So it sounds like if folks are interested in those spring deadlines, this is kind of the perfect time to start exploring those materials and pulling things together. Megan asked another great question in the chat. Do you have a recommended maximum word or character count that applicants should consider as they're crafting the text for their potential marker?
I will turn that one over to someone from the marker team if they want to talk a little bit more about marker inscription style, characters, character limits. If there's, Anna, Emma want to jump on?
Yeah, I can take that one. Thanks, Steve. So generally our markers allow for a title line that's up to 15 characters and then five body lines with 27 characters each. So it's very specific because we can only fit so much onto the marker and it's a snapshot of history. But yeah, this also includes spaces and punctuation, so you want to be mindful of periods, commas, and all of that when crafting the inscription. There is a bit of wiggle room because the text is hand set, but we'll work with you closely on the inscription if you need help formatting things, and yeah, we're happy to support. So hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Definitely a good public history skill is that experience of fitting a lot of details into a small space and making it interesting at the same time. So I'm sure folks are always grateful for your help and advice in that review process. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit with us about any tips you have for applicants on how they might approach the letter of inquiry or letter of interest, and maybe if there are some common questions that you get along the way as you're working with applicants or potential applicants.
I think that might be another good one for the marker team if someone wants to jump on.
I'll step up for this one. So the letter of intent is kind of like a first stage for the application. What we're looking for with that is really just that you're on the right track in terms of picking a safe location, a relevant location, and that you're thinking about what's going to go in the marker text, and just a list of citations that show us that you're kind of on the right track for primary sources. We don't actually need the primary sources for the letter of intent, but just the citations so that, we know you're going on the right track. We typically approve those pretty quickly. And then once that is approved, you can, and we may give you some feedback on that as well to help help you along the way. And then once that's approved, you have access to the full application. That is where we need the actual primary sources themselves, usually images or scans. We do our online software Foundant can only support we have two upload locations where you can only upload one document in each. So just combine those sources into a document to upload. And then, as mentioned before, we do need the permission letter there. We need GPS coordinates, things like that. And then once you submit that, our evaluation process can take, I think it's between 1 and 3 months, but you should hear from us with some feedback. We do try to help you, not just deny it, but like help you try to get it where it needs to be in order for our trustees to approve it. Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it sounds like a great teaching tool as well, especially for organizations that might be newer to the grant process. It's amazing to have such help along the way. We've got about 10 minutes left today, so if folks have other questions, feel free to pop those into the chat or the Q&A. Oh, perfect. We have another question from Jim Bourne. Are all of the signs in English? And would you do a double set with two languages? It's a great question.
It is a great question. And I'm happy to report that we have done dual language signs. We have dual language markers out there. Examples I'll give. So our partnership with the Lafayette Trail, Julian Hichet, originally from France, the Lafayette Trail program commemorates General Lafayette's 1824-1825 farewell tour. And there's at least two locations where one side of the marker is in French. And we also have a great partner in the Center for Louisiana Studies in Louisiana for our Legends and Lore program. And there are at least two markers in Cajun French. Um, We might have one marker, and again, there's over 3,000 markers. We might have one marker with Spanish on one side. I can't remember off the top of my head. I will verify that or let you know if you reach out to me. But yes, we do have examples of that. And what we would do, depending on the circumstances, is review how that, what the context is, what the needs are, and then if it does make sense, as we did with, like, say, the Lafayette Trail. We would consider and find somebody who can write that and prepare that in French so that it matches each side.
That's awesome. As we wait for any last minute questions to get put in, I was wondering if any of you would like to share with us a bit about a personal favorite marker that you were able to review or provide advice on.
I think everyone on the marker team probably has some really good examples, recent time or in the past, but I'll let the marker team take that one.
I've actually got a good one. It was a marker that was recently submitted through the Patriot Burials program, and as with that program, we review the cemetery stones to make sure that they're original, and the documentation to prove service. And what's really nice with some of the cemeteries, especially in New York, they often have quite a bit of information, more than you would typically expect from a very early cemetery. And we came across one not particularly far from here. And as I was looking at it, we discovered one of Bill Pomeroy's ancestors. And digging into it a little bit in our genealogy database, and this is where my work between the two orgs is kind of fun. We discovered that we didn't know anything about her. We didn't know where she was buried. We didn't know when she died. She died at a point where her name was unfortunately never in any of the census records. But by finding where she was, we were able to rebuild a little bit of the history of her and flesh out a little bit more of her story. And eventually, once I can get a little further into it, that's going to be one of the blogs on the new APHGA website that'll tie into the work that the foundation does.
I'll talk about one real quick, if we've got the time. Again, with my work with the education program, all my favorites are probably going to be ones done by students. But so last year we had a really great teacher who was working with a group of seventh graders out in Albion, New York, and they identified buried in a local small cemetery, a Revolutionary War soldier who had been a lifeguard for George Washington. So that was a pretty exciting find, and it hadn't been known before, so it was a new information. And so in the process, we were able to fund two markers for them, one for the cemetery commemorating everyone buried in the cemetery, and then another for the Patriot Burials program. And this group of seventh graders, now I guess they're eighth graders now, but they were able to they worked with their local county historian, who showed them how to work with some primary sources. They had the Sons of the Revolution visit their classroom, and so it was a really fun project. I got to I talked to them over the phone like a little bit, and it just was a great project.
Yeah, and if we also have more time, I can mention one of my favorites that I've worked on before too. And so I'm the liaison for the Legends and Lore program. So I helped with one and evaluated one actually from New York State, and it's actually located regionally here in Syracuse, where we're posted. And so this one is to be installed this spring, but it's titled Green on Top, and it has to do with a legend that involves the Irish community here in Syracuse. And so the neighborhood where it's located, Tip Hill, has an upside down traffic light. with the green on top and the red on the bottom. You don't notice the difference too much unless you see this one, but it's the only upside down traffic light in the US, and possibly in the world, I believe. And so the legend goes that some teenagers in the Irish community were upset that the color red was on top because it represented the Great Britain, and they had some angst and anger against Great Britain, of course, knowing their history, and so the teenagers threw rocks at the traffic light to break the light, and eventually the city gave in after they were vandalizing it so much, and they decided to flip over the traffic light. So that's the origin of the green on top legend, and we were able to get a special marker for that. And typically our Legends lore markers are red, but for this instance, we couldn't have it red according to the legends. So we're going to have a special green marker posted there at the site of the traffic light. So that one was really fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Makes me think you guys must have such a fun time reviewing these applications and learning so many cool bits of history and lore. I wanted to share a comment from the chat from Nicole Elzenga in Renville County Historical Society, who says, my hope is to add markers for the old villages that are no longer in our county so these locations are not forgotten. Most are tilled planted fields now. So that's wonderful, Nicole. We have another question from says, Hi, Erica Jane from Ketchikan, Alaska with Historic Ketchikan Inc. Question on the roadside style. How firm are you on that specific style and size of signage? We have 1.5 million visitors on our island, and in our downtown, a large percentage are pedestrians. Have you funded signs that are geared more towards foot traffic or a smaller size over specifically roadside?
That's a really wonderful question. And uh, I'll start by, pointing out the marker style that you see on the slide here. So that is our general standard Pomeroy historical marker style. The markers are about 2 by 3 feet. That's a 7 foot pole. There are examples in Alaska. I believe we have at least two National Register style and one from the predecessor to our historic transportation marker program at the Hood Canal. What we've found with this style of marker is that there is a lot of flexibility of where the location can be. So because they're not too large in size, and we're just talking about that 7 foot pole, we've seen this style marker in dense urban areas. We've seen them out in very rural settings, off on the side of dirt roads or even let's say revitalized railroad beds, rail trails. So there's a lot of flexibility. It would come down to the specific location, but they work well even if they're not on the side of the road. It could be in a place where people are mostly walking, and there's not an actual paved roadway. We've got many examples. A lot of the Patriot burials markers are at cemeteries or in cemeteries and are off the beaten path a little bit. Visibility is still something that we want for the markers so that people actually notice them and can access them. But this really does provide a lot of flexibility. And then to answer the point about other types of markers, at this time we don't. It would be interesting to hear if there are ideas, and we certainly want to hear ideas for potential collaborations, other styles. But right now, what we do fund is the type of style that you see on the slide, and it does work in a lot of really different settings.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in and add one thing real quick for that. We have our National Register program does offer the choice between the marker or a plaque that is smaller and can be mounted on a building. So that program does have that difference. And then also we have seen in a couple of very dense urban areas, on a case-by-case basis, we are able to mount it onto a building, but that's very rare and is very case specific. So you would want to talk to us about that as a possibility.
Wonderful. Thank you. As we're nearing the top of the hour, I just want to say thank you so much again to Steve, Anastasia, John, and Emma for this great presentation and for sharing with us more about the various marker grant programs that the foundation has. I'll remind everyone that NCPH will be sending a follow-up email in the next few days that will have a link to the recording of this webinar, as well as a list of the resources shared in the chat. You'll see on the final slide here ways to reach out to the Pomeroy Foundation if you have more specific questions, and we'll reiterate that information in our follow-up email as well. And I hope that you all will join us for future NCPH virtual events. Megan will share a link to what's coming up in the chat. And we will also have a webinar, sorry, in February with the Pomeroy Foundation to dive more into the Historic Marker Weekend programs and how to create some opportunities for community and student engagement in that program as well. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you to our presenters for sharing your work with us. And I hope that you're all staying warm and dry. Have a great afternoon, everyone.